Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. They came with gold-foiled letters and fake authority, trying to lock us in our own home for the sake of their illusion. But we weren't part of their HOA, and we never would be. What began as a warning turned into a siege, and I wasn't about to back down. Not on my land. I had just finished bolting down the last section of solar rack when my wife, Jess, came out onto the deck holding a thick envelope with gold-foiled edges like it was ticking. She waved it in the air like she was about to throw it into the woods. "You've got to see this crap." I wiped my hands on a rag and took the envelope. It was real heavy for just being a letter. The front had my full name, address, and a weirdly pompous seal stamped into the corner. Silverbrook Reserve, Executive HOA Council. That was funny already. We don't live in Silverbrook. Never have. My 4-acre plot borders it, sure, but my driveway doesn't even connect to their fancy loop. We've got our own road, our own well, solar, batteries, satellite. We're off-grid by design. The only thing I ever borrowed from Silverbrook was shade from their pine trees. Inside the envelope was a letter, thick cardstock, gold embossing. I read it out loud, squinting at the dramatic serif font like I was holding a royal decree. To all residents in proximity to Silverbrook Reserve, due to the arrival of high-profile international guests, you are required to remain within the boundaries of your home for a period of 72 hours beginning Friday at 6:01 a.m. This measure is for security and discretion. Thank you for your cooperation. Karen Satterfield, HOA President. I snorted. Jess looked at me like I was about to break something. "You know anything about this?" I shook my head. "Yeah, I know it's horse shit." "Did we somehow get sucked into their HOA without knowing it?" she asked. "Nope. I double-checked that back when we bought this place. It's specifically excluded from their HOA covenants. That's the only reason I bought it. Nobody tells us what color mailbox we can have, remember?" She nodded, still frowning. "So why the hell would they send this?" "No clue. Maybe they think they own the air now, too." I looked over at our kids playing in the field by the greenhouse. If this was supposed to scare me, it was going to take more than calligraphy and a lady named Karen to do the job. Still, I figured it was worth checking in case someone at the county office had gone temporarily insane. I called the number listed at the bottom of the letter, got a voicemail greeting that sounded like it was recorded inside a wine cellar. Something about exclusive living, community standards, and respecting collective boundaries. Left a message asking what kind of dictatorship they thought they were running. 2 hours later, I get an email. Same thing as the letter, but this time with a glossy PDF attachment showing a map. The map outlined the entire Silverbrook development and my land. I zoomed in. They'd traced the HOA border right over my damn driveway. Just absorbed it like I was Poland, and they were real proud of it. Jess stood behind me, looking over my shoulder. Are they allowed to do that? They're allowed to hallucinate, apparently. "Well, what are we doing Friday?" she asked. "Same thing we were gonna do. Load up the truck, drive out to Wildwood, have a picnic, watch the kids almost drown. HOA can shove their invisible fence." She smirked. "Think they'll actually try to stop us?" I shrugged. "They can try, but it won't be a good story for them." I tossed the letter on the kitchen table and went back outside to finish the solar mount. I figured that was the end of it. A dumb bluff from a bunch of bored suburban monarchs trying to impress someone with deeper pockets. But something about the way that letter was worded, the confidence in it, it started chewing at me. Jess called it HOA menopause, when control freaks hit their peak and start thinking they run the world. Friday couldn't come soon enough. Friday morning started calm. I was up at 5, made coffee, checked the system logs on the inverter, and packed a cooler with lunch stuff while Jess wrangled the kids into finding their shoes. It was a perfect day for a family trip. Sunny, light breeze, just enough clouds to keep the heat honest. We planned to hit Wildwood Lake, let the kids swim while I grilled hot dogs and pretended to relax. By 6:05, we were all loaded into the truck. Jess in the passenger seat, Ellie and Nate buckled in the back, both already arguing about who got window control. I hit the garage door button. It slid up slow and steady, revealing the gravel drive winding down toward the county road, and the black SUV parked right across our exit. It wasn't a cop car, no markings, but the thing was parked at an angle across our drive like someone watched too many tactical shows. 2 guys stood in front of it in dark blue shirts with silver shield patches on the sleeves. Not law enforcement, private security. On the patches, Silverbrook Reserve Enforcement Division. What in the actual hell? I stopped the truck a dozen feet short and rolled the window down. One of them, tall, buzz-cut, sunglasses at 6 a.m., stepped toward me with a clipboard. His partner hung back, arms crossed, eyes bouncing between me and the truck like we were hauling drugs. "Morning," I said, calm but clipped. "Good morning, sir," Buzzcut said. "I'm going to have to ask you to remain at your residence for the next 72 hours. Jess leaned across me. "Excuse me." He glanced at his clipboard, then back at me. "As per the notice issued earlier this week by Silver Brook Reserve, this area is under restricted movement due to sensitive visitors. We appreciate your cooperation." "Appreciate it all you want," I said, "but you're blocking my damn driveway." "This is a controlled perimeter," he replied, still annoyingly polite. "No, this is my land," I snapped. "That gravel you're standing on? It's not Silverbrook's. It's mine. That culvert over there? Mine. That pine tree you're probably standing too close to? Still mine." Jess opened her door to get out. Buzzcut's partner moved fast, too fast, and stepped in front of her door, hand outstretched like he was directing traffic. "Ma'am," he said, "we need you to remain in the vehicle." Wrong move. Jess recoiled instantly, and the kids started yelling. "Don't touch my wife," I said, voice flat. He didn't listen, reached for the door handle like he had the right. I was out of the truck in 2 seconds flat. Training kicks in fast when it's been drilled into your bones. I didn't think. I just moved. Grabbed the guy's wrist, twisted hard, turned his balance against him. He hit the gravel with a grunt, not injured, but definitely surprised. Buzzcut rushed forward, but I stepped into him with my elbow raised and a palm to the chest. He stumbled, lost his footing, landed on his ass right beside his buddy. I took 3 steps back, arms raised slightly. "You two are lucky I'm in a good mood." Jess was already dialing 911. I pulled out my phone and hit record. Panned slowly across the SUV, the 2 goons on the ground, the badge patches, the fake professionalism. My hand wasn't shaking, but I could feel my heart punching my ribs like it wanted in on the action. "We are calling the sheriff," Jess said firmly, "and you are not moving a muscle until they get here." Buzzcut started to get up. "You assaulted security personnel." "No," I said, cutting him off. "I defended my wife from someone trying to detain her on private land without legal authority. If you want to press charges, I'll hand you my lawyer's card. Spoiler, he eats HOA meatballs for breakfast." They didn't respond. Just sat there, suddenly unsure whether the playbook had anything past look intimidating and hope for compliance. Sheriff's Department was 15 minutes out. I stayed standing, camera rolling, eyes locked on those two. If they so much as sneezed toward my truck, they were getting face first acquainted with a cactus. And the best part, kids stayed quiet the whole time. Just watched. I think that freaked the guards out more than me. The sheriff's cruiser rolled up slow and casual, like this was a noise complaint or a cat stuck in a tree. Deputy got out, mid-50s, heavy-set sunglasses despite the overcast, tapped the brim of his hat, and looked over the scene like we were a mild inconvenience. His name tag said McNeil. I'd seen him once at the county fair, judging a chili cook-off with a level of gravitas normally reserved for homicide trials. "Morning," he said. "Morning," I replied, arms still crossed. He glanced at the 2 HOA goons, still standing awkwardly near their SUV like kids waiting for the principal, then looked at Jess, then at me. "You want to tell me what's going on?" I did. Brief, calm, clear. Explained how they blocked my driveway, tried to prevent my wife from getting out of the vehicle, laid hands on her door, got put on the ground. Showed him the video, showed him the letter, showed him the map from the email that laughably included our land inside the HOA's controlled zone. McNeil watched it all, squinting at the phone screen, one hand on his belt, the other holding a notepad he never once wrote anything in. "All right," he said slowly. "Here's the deal, Mr. Langston. I get that you're upset." "I'm not upset," I said. "I'm pissed. There's a difference." He nodded like he was acknowledging weather patterns. "But here's the thing. HOA's got some high-profile guests coming in from overseas. I was told to ensure things stay calm, no disturbances. You understand?" "Yeah," I said. "I understand that they're playing pretend like this is some gated monarchy and I'm supposed to bow when the golden SUV rolls through. Problem is, I don't belong to their little fantasy land. My land isn't under their jurisdiction." "Still," he said, as if I hadn't spoken, "maybe it'd be easier for everyone if you just stayed home this weekend." I laughed, out loud. I couldn't help it. "Let me get this straight. You're telling me, an independent landowner with no legal ties to this HOA, to voluntarily confine my family inside our house for 72 hours just so a bunch of rich tourists don't see a pickup truck driving down a road? He adjusted his sunglasses like they were hiding the shame. I'm asking you to consider it as a gesture of community cooperation. This community, I said, has done nothing but shove a gold-plated boot in my face since they decided the world ends at their mailbox. Cooperation ended when they tried to detain my wife on our own gravel. He sighed. Look, I can't arrest them unless you want to press charges. Still deciding, I said, but you can damn well file a report. And I want the incident number, the names of both of these idiots, and a full record of this stop. You got it, he muttered. Also, I added, I'm filing formal complaints, one to the county, one to the state, and one to the Civil Liberties Board. And, bonus, copies to every local outlet that still runs real news. Jess stepped in, holding up her phone. Already drafted. Want to proofread before we hit send. McNeil looked from me to her like he was realizing, a little too late, that we weren't going to roll over and play nice for anyone. He took down the information, slowly, reluctantly. I made sure to film the entire interaction. Nothing aggressive, just firm, clear, legal. As he walked back to his cruiser, he stopped by the HOA SUV, said something to the goons too quiet for me to hear. They nodded like naughty interns and climbed back inside. A minute later, they backed off our drive and disappeared down the road. I waited until they were out of sight, then turned to Jess. We're still going. She grinned. Damn right we are. We loaded the kids back up and pulled out. But that pit in my gut, it hadn't gone anywhere. Something told me this wasn't just about one weekend or some VIP tour. This was something bigger. And we had just made ourselves the most inconvenient problem in someone's carefully polished illusion. The first thing I did when we got back from Wildwood was send everything, video, letter scans, email attachments, the full story, to a buddy of mine named Marcus. He's not a lawyer, but he's the kind of guy who reads zoning code for fun and keeps old court records like other people keep recipes. He used to work for a property law firm in Austin before deciding civilization wasn't worth the parking. Marcus called me that evening with the kind of tone people usually reserve for finding mold in the foundation. They're screwing with the land registry, he said. Define screwing. I pulled the most recent filings on the HOA expansion plans. You were listed as a tentative participating parcel. You know what that means? Bullshit. Bullshit with paperwork, he said. It means they've submitted internal development plans to pitch their next phase, including your land, under the assumption you'll eventually sign on. But they're using that assumption as if it's fact. I sat on the porch, beer sweating in my hand, trying not to crush the can. So, what does that mean legally? It means they're presenting your property as part of their upcoming phase to outside parties, investors, possibly to the county board, maybe even overseas partners, without your consent. Sounds like fraud, Marcus chuckled. Only if you catch them before the deal closes. Otherwise, it's just aggressive development posture. Jesus. He sent me copies of the filings. Sure enough, in a glossy prospectus sent to some Dubai-based holding group, Silverbrook Reserve Phase 2 included expanded luxury lots, with one lot mapped right over my damn house. Even had a bullet point. Existing modular home available for demonstration purposes. That's right, my home. The one I built. The one they tried to lock me inside of for their open house. I was their damn show pony, and no one told me I was in the act. That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I got to work. First, I uploaded everything to a private folder, labeled and timestamped. Letter, map, HOA guard video, sheriff body cam, emails, now the fraudulent filings. Next, I drafted a timeline, complete with dates and actions taken. Then I reached out to a reporter I'd met at a sustainability expo last year, Tina Marlowe. She covered land rights and local corruption. Loved a good HOA horror story. She answered on the second ring. By noon the next day, we were sitting across from each other at a diner 20 miles out. I laid it all out. She took notes faster than I could talk. They tried to quarantine you for real estate optics, she asked, wide-eyed. Yep. And they called it community discretion. Yep. And now your property is listed in a prospectus you never agreed to. Still, yep. She whistled. This is going to burn. She promised the piece would go live by Monday. In the meantime, I did one better. I went public myself. I posted a 10-minute video online titled, "When an HOA Thinks They Own You. My Land, My Rights, My Fight." Told the story straight. Calm, professional tone, just the facts with a slow pan across the fake security patches and footage of the deputy trying to play mediator for a private mafia. It went viral in less than a day. By Sunday morning, I had hundreds of messages, people sharing similar stories, others asking how to check if their property was being phantom zoned. One guy in Nevada told me he'd been fined by an HOA he wasn't even in for having unapproved landscaping visible from adjacent HOA windows. But the best part? A former board member from Silverbrook anonymously sent me an email. "You're not crazy. This isn't the first time they've done this. Look into Phase 1, start with Lot 14. So I did. And what I found made me realize this wasn't just a rogue board overreaching. This was a goddamn pattern. Monday morning, I woke up to find a crumpled flyer stuffed into my mailbox, unsigned, badly photocopied, with the headline, "Community Safety or Radicalism." The rest of it was a thinly veiled hit piece accusing me of undermining neighborhood harmony, endangering property values, and spreading misinformation to discredit Silverbrook's legacy of excellence. At the bottom, in shaky bold, "We see you, Mr. Langston, and so do our guests." Jess read it over my shoulder and let out a short, bitter laugh. "They're not even trying to be subtle anymore." I shrugged. Legacy of excellence sounds like a brand of toilet paper. But I wasn't laughing. Over the next 2 days, things got weirder. Several of my neighbors, folks who lived just outside HOA borders like me, started texting. They'd received the same voluntary home confinement letter. Some got visits from Silverbrook Enforcement, encouraging them to participate in community alignment. One guy, Derek, said a uniformed HOA rep warned him that non-compliance might affect future zoning accommodations. That's when I knew this wasn't about me anymore. I wasn't just a thorn in their manicured lawn. I was becoming contagious. Then came the drone. It was noon. I was out near the chicken coop, and I heard the distinct buzz of quad rotors overhead. Looked up and saw it. A sleek black drone hovering maybe 30 feet above my property line, drifting slowly back and forth, camera glinting in the sun. Not wildlife surveying, not a hobbyist. This thing was controlled, calculated, and aimed. I pulled out my phone, started recording it, then walked back to the shed and came out with my old signal jammer. Technically illegal in about a dozen ways, but I kept it for emergencies and ex-boyfriends of Jess's sister. Flipped it on, pointed it up, and waited. 5 seconds later, the drone wobbled, twitched, and dropped like a sack of potatoes into my corn patch. I bagged the wreckage and drove it straight to the sheriff's office. Told the clerk I was filing a report for unauthorized aerial surveillance and electronic harassment. The deputy at the counter gave me a long, slow blink before asking if I had any enemies in local government. I said, "Not until recently." By that afternoon, another neighbor, Susan, 3 houses down the gravel, called me in a panic. Her husband had found a small wireless camera hidden in their backyard, tucked under the eaves of their storage shed. Another neighbor reported a strange man sitting in a white sedan outside their property line for 2 straight hours. It wasn't just a power play anymore, it was intimidation. And just to top it all off, that night, I checked our mailbox again. The door was half open. Inside was a laminated business card that hadn't been there earlier. No envelope, just the card. "Compliance and Coordination Specialist, Silverbrook Reserve. Let's talk." I didn't sleep. Jess didn't either. We lay in bed in the dark, listening to the wind rustle through the trees, and wondering how far a bunch of suburban aristocrats would go to keep their investment illusion intact. "I feel like we're being watched in our own home," Jess whispered. "We are," I said. I got up, poured coffee at 2 a.m., and started building a list. Names, timestamps, plate numbers, photos. I went over my footage, labeled everything, even the damn flyer. I wanted a record so detailed a court clerk could set it to music, because now it was no longer about land, or pride, or even privacy. This was a siege, and if they wanted war, I was done playing defense. By the time most people were finishing their morning coffee, I had already built a digital evidence file thick enough to scare a mid-level prosecutor. Video clips, screenshots, sworn neighbor statements, timestamps, even GPS logs from my own security cams. Every lie, every breach, every smug overreach from the HOA was getting its own neatly labeled folder. I'd started calling it the War Book, But this wasn't something I could handle alone anymore. I needed firepower. That meant calling Carla Ortega. Carla ran a small but aggressive firm in the county seat. Her business card read Property Law and Municipal Defense, but her clients just called her the HOA Hammer. She was ex-military JAG, wore practical boots with her suits, and smiled like a woman who'd been through depositions that ended in tears, never hers. I laid everything out in her office. Drone wreckage in a bag, the flyer from my mailbox, emails, footage of the guards, the fraudulent HOA expansion maps. She didn't interrupt once, just kept flipping pages and nodding slowly like she was mentally sharpening a blade. Jesus Christ, she muttered finally. They really tried it. Tried what? This. All of it. You're not just dealing with boundary creep or overly enthusiastic volunteers. This is organized coercion with a paper trail. And once you can prove that they filed development documents with your land falsely included, which I can, I said, sliding over Marcus's certified property boundary report. Then they're toast. Toast with a fraud glaze. Within 24 hours, Carla had filed a cease and desist against Silverbrook HOA and sent demand letters to their board members. Then we filed a class action suit representing me and 8 adjacent homeowners. Claims included criminal trespass, unlawful surveillance, harassment and intimidation, fraudulent misrepresentation of property rights, attempted misappropriation of private land in investment filings. Carla didn't hold back. She used phrases like malicious community overreach and paramilitary HOA enforcement conduct. Even had the drone listed as an exhibit. While she handled the legal swordplay, I doubled down on the public front. Tina Marlowe's article went live on Monday morning. Headline: When the HOA Thinks It's God, a landowner's fight against suburban tyranny. The opening paragraph was gold. Chris Langston built his off-grid dream home to escape the noise. He didn't expect the HOA next door to try and turn him into their silent mascot. By lunchtime, the story had gone semi-viral in local Facebook groups. Neighbors started sharing their own phantom HOA encounters. Someone dug up HOA board minutes suggesting Karen Satterfield, the president, had proposed discouragement protocols for non-compliant parcel owners. Discouragement protocols. Sounds like something from a Cold War spy manual. That night, I got an anonymous tip through encrypted email. A whistleblower claimed to be a former assistant for the HOA's legal team. She said she'd seen internal drafts of the investment prospectus where multiple properties were marked as pre-negotiated acquisitions, including mine, without a single signed agreement. She attached a PDF. There it was. My name, my parcel number, my home listed as flagged for Phase 2 integration pending HOA compliance realignment. I didn't know whether to laugh or throw a chair through a wall. Instead, I sent the file straight to Carla, who responded within 5 minutes. Holy shit, we own them now. But the HOA wasn't rolling over. The next morning, they released a polished public statement. The Silverbrook Reserve HOA firmly denies any misconduct. We value transparency and harmony. The current allegations stem from misunderstandings regarding voluntary safety advisories. Our community liaisons act solely in a non-enforcement good faith capacity. Community liaisons. Is that what they're calling the rent-a-cop jackasses who tried to detain my wife? I answered with another video, clear, time-stamped Steadicam. I narrated over the footage of the guards, the drone drop, the fake volunteer line. I called it The Lies They Tell While Smiling. By nightfall, it had over 100,000 views. Even an HOA horror subreddit pinned it. Then came the big swing. The injunction. Our motion was accepted by a district judge who clearly didn't like HOA games. She granted a temporary restraining order against the Silverbrook HOA, forbidding them from interacting with or attempting to influence any property or resident outside their recorded boundaries. The order also demanded immediate preservation of all internal communications under threat of contempt. It was a direct hit. HOA lawyers tried to downplay it, but the truth was out. News crews showed up to interview me by my mailbox. Neighbors brought over pie like I was a local war hero. A retired veteran named Joe handed me an old hand-painted sign, "Private land, not yours, not ever." And then, right when I thought we'd hit a plateau, Carla called. Someone just flipped. Flipped how? A former paralegal from their legal counsel wants whistleblower protection. She's got hard evidence of forged development signatures and internal messages where Karen personally greenlit the perimeter containment plan for your property. I stood silent for a moment, holding the phone. "They were planning this for months," I said. "Longer," Carla replied. "This goes way beyond your land." And I knew then, for the first time, that we weren't just winning a battle. We were about to pull down the entire empire. They say institutions don't collapse, they unravel, one thread at a time. And by the time Carla called to tell me that someone on the inside had flipped, the Silverbrook HOA was fraying at every seam. The paralegal's name was Aubrey. 28 years old, nervous but steady. She didn't want money, didn't want attention. What she did want was protection, and to make sure Karen Satterfield never bullied another person the way she'd bullied her staff. Carla arranged a closed-door deposition and sat me in. What Aubrey revealed made everything we'd seen look like kindergarten shoving matches. She brought emails, real ones, not filtered press garbage. Internal memos between Karen and the HOA's investment committee, a fancy name for 3 board members, and a sleazy developer from Florida. They'd known for months that certain parcels adjacent to Silverbrook weren't eligible for inclusion in the next phase. Mine was listed with a bright red note, not HOA, no easement, owner hostile to affiliation. But that hadn't stopped them. Instead, they'd crafted what they called the silent integration strategy. It sounded like something out of a sci-fi novel. Its goal was simple: create the illusion of unified community control to impress foreign investors. Minimize noise, visual conflict, and unauthorized movement, the document said. Perception equals property value. That's what I was to them, a disruption in the illusion. They'd gone as far as flagging my lot in investor brochures as an in-transition asset and used fake endorsement quotes like, "We look forward to joining Silverbrook's vision." I never said that. Hell, I'd never said anything remotely civil about Silverbrook in public, let alone in an investment brochure. Aubrey had the receipts, PDFs, drafts, email attachments, edited maps. We backed it all up, encrypted and triple copied. Carla was practically vibrating with joy. But the real cherry on top? A private group chat Aubrey had archived from the HOA Slack. That's where the real rot was. Karen had written, "Langston's property is a visibility risk. If he won't play nice, we have to encourage discretion. I don't care how we get it done. Just keep his truck off the road while they're here." Another board member replied, "He's a problem for our aesthetic narrative." Aesthetic narrative. That's what they called my home, my life, my family. A narrative blemish. That night, I uploaded a redacted version of those logs online. Names obscured, but messages intact. Caption: "They called me a risk to their aesthetic narrative." This is what HOAs think of real people. The post blew up. Comments poured in. Former HOA members, urban planners, even a few whistleblowers from other states. One guy in Arizona said his HOA tried to fine him for owning a visible ladder. Another woman from Florida said she was threatened for putting a disability access ramp without design review. My inbox turned into a therapy circle for the HOA traumatized. Then came the tipping point. The county prosecutor, who'd been watching all this unfold, subpoenaed Silverbrook's internal records. Karen must have known it was over because she did what every egomaniac does when the walls start closing in. She tried to double down. On Thursday morning, I woke up to find 3 men in suits standing at the edge of my property line. Not quite on it. Just on the line, staring. Clipboards, aviators, cheap cologne. HOA, legal counsel. They didn't speak, didn't wave. Just stood there for 30 minutes while I drank coffee on the porch in a lawn chair. Shotgun resting across my lap. Not pointed at them, but not invisible either. Eventually, they left. But not before one of them pulled out his phone and took a picture of me. I smiled and raised my mug. I posted that picture too. Caption: "If you're gonna threaten me, do it with better cologne." Later that afternoon, the sheriff's department raided the HOA offices. It was quiet, clinical. 3 cruisers, 1 unmarked black Tahoe, uniforms in and out. Computers boxed, files tagged. Karen wasn't there, yet. But the news broke fast. Photos leaked. Local TV ran with it. Silverbrook, HOA under criminal investigation. I watched the whole thing from my laptop with Jess beside me, both of us speechless for the first time in weeks. Then came the moment we'd all been waiting for. Karen Satterfield, queen of passive aggression, mother of micromanagement, tyrant of turf grass, was arrested at her office that evening. Cameras caught her being walked out, lipstick perfect, sunglasses on like she thought this was a movie premiere. Charges included fraudulent misrepresentation of property ownership, attempted coercion of landowners, illegal surveillance, filing false investment statements, obstruction of justice. Jess popped champagne. The neighborhood group chat exploded. HOA board members started resigning one after another like rats off a yacht that forgot it wasn't a submarine. And I sat on the porch and breathed, not like a man who'd won. Not yet. But like a man who finally saw daylight breaking through the fog. It took another 3 weeks for the dust to settle, and even then, only just. After Karen's arrest, the county moved fast. Faster than I expected from a system usually built to stall. Maybe it was the headlines. Maybe it was the pressure from a dozen watchdog groups now breathing down their necks. Or maybe, just maybe, someone in government finally realized what HOA overreach looked like when it grew teeth. The Silverbrook Reserve HOA was placed under emergency review by the State HOA Oversight Board. Yes, that's a real thing. The remaining board members resigned en masse after their emails started leaking. Turns out, Karen wasn't the only one who thought they were running a suburban dictatorship. One memo suggested phasing out unsightly non-compliant dwellings by leveraging code pressure. Translation, harass people like me into selling. Didn't work. The final nail in the coffin came when the County Zoning Committee voted unanimously to revoke Silverbrook's pending expansion permits. That fancy Phase 2 development with my house as its demonstration model? Dead, canceled, permits shredded. Investors ghosted. Even the shady guy from Florida bailed, reportedly telling someone at a bar, "That place is radioactive now." Good. The whistleblower Aubrey was granted immunity and given protection under the state's anti-retaliation statute. I made sure her story got told, quietly but properly. She'd done more good with one email chain than most people do in a lifetime. And me? I spent a few days walking my land, not because I had to, but because I could. It felt different now, lighter, like a weight had been lifted, not just from my shoulders but from the air itself. The kind of peace that comes after a storm flattens the lies and leaves the truth standing like a tree that wouldn't bend. Then I put up the fence. 12-gauge steel posts, powder-coated panels, infrared motion sensors at night. Not because I was paranoid, but because I knew how far delusion could travel if left unchecked. On the outer face of the gate, I had a sign custom welded. Bold serif letters, clean matte black finish. This is not HOA. Never was. Come back and see what happens. Jess rolled her eyes when I installed it, but even she couldn't hide the smirk. We held a cookout that weekend. Not a protest, not a rally. Just neighbors, old ones, new ones, even a few who used to be nervous about taking sides. We grilled, we laughed, we let the kids run around the field barefoot. No permission slips, no yard inspectors, no decorum violations. Just people living. I gave a short speech, mostly because they made me. I didn't say anything dramatic. Just thanked everyone for standing up, for refusing to be intimidated, for remembering that property doesn't come with strings attached just because someone puts up a gate nearby. By then, my inbox was full of messages from around the country. Homeowners asking how they could fight back. Veterans, single moms, retirees, folks who'd been fined for basketball hoops, for flags, for planting the wrong kind of rose bush. I started writing a guide, something simple, clear, and useful. When private power goes too far, a landowner's survival manual. Catchy enough, right? Tina Marlowe offered to help publish it. She said people needed tools, not just horror stories. The county prosecutor filed formal charges against Silverbrook HOA as an entity. A judge appointed a dissolution officer. That's a fancy term for the person who will legally and officially kill it. Within months, Silverbrook as a power structure would be gone. Just another footnote in a list of HOAs that forgot where their borders ended. And 1 week after the final injunction was signed, I got a letter. Certified mail, cream-colored envelope, very official. Inside, per the authority granted by County Resolution 23-8401B, the parcel owned by Christopher Langston has been officially exempted from all future annexation efforts by Silverbrook Reserve or any HOA seeking adjacent integration. I pinned it to the wall in my office, next to a photo of our property, and next to a smaller note from Ellie, our youngest, handwritten in crayon, "Daddy won, bad neighbors gone." That one I framed.